Hello and welcome to this session on how to install SAP Business One 9.3 version for SAP HANA on a bare metal server and make it turnkey ready. So we will do this following the implementation guideline presentation, which you can also download in the Partner Edge portal. So there are different ways to upgrade or install 9.3 version for SAP HANA. We will focus on a new installation, so not on an upgrade. So we will go through the steps of bare metal installation and the installation of SAP HANA and Business One. So before you get started, of course, some prerequisites and recommendations, or requirements even. So you should do a sizing as a partner. So get in touch with your customer prospect and then, of course, do a proper sizing. So you can use the sizing tool to get an expected amount of required memory over the next 3 years. In the next step, you should also check with the customer if the customer is using a data center, is preferring any server brands like IBM, Dell, Fujitsu, HP, and so on. If yes, you have already something to filter the SAP HANA hardware directory. So in the SAP HANA hardware directory, you can get an overview of all certified SAP HANA appliances for SAP Business One, and furthermore, of course, but this link will directly filter for SAP Business One appliances. In addition, there's a bill of material plan or list available, so you can see the configurations of each server and also the options. So sometimes you can buy a HANA server including a SUSE installation and RAID configuration, or including some additional hardware like a second power supplying unit or cables or whatever. You can check the brochures and BOM from the different server vendors. This brings me to the next bullet point. So for some server brands, the hardware RAID or SUSE and SUSE Linux is optionally already pre-configured or installed. So sometimes there are options to, let's say, buy this as a service, or you have this already for some server brands as a standard delivery that you get RAID pre-configured and SUSE Linux pre-installed. Next is the case that mostly the server is delivered as a bare metal, so nothing is there. Even if a RAID is configured, you never know if this is fulfilling the SAP HANA appliance requirements. So let us jump to the next slide and talk about the configuration of server hardware RAID. This is then necessary to do to see which RAID configuration, BIOS configuration is required. So let's open it up. So you can see further down below this SAP node at the end in the attachments, you can now see one attachment called How to Configure Hardware Platforms for SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. And if we open that attachment, you can see a how-to guide or configuration guide which explains all necessary steps for the different server brands and the models. So in my case, I have a Fujitsu server, which I will present or use during this demo. And this server is a Fujitsu RX series, so RX S7 or S8, I have to check it in detail, but it should be RX 350. So if we look here at this graphic, we can see that there are 6 to 8 disks probably, and there's a virtual drive, a small one, which has the size always of 53 gigabytes, and you can see it further down below. And the rest is in the second virtual drive. So actually here, this is the one applying for the RX 357 and 8 with 8 disks. Okay, so let's jump now to the configuration part, and this is really easy. So we just need to follow these steps. So I will now connect to the HANA server. This is an older Fujitsu model, so it has still the Java JViewer server view application, which requires some additional settings to run with Java 8, but I don't cover this in this video. So what we will do is we will need to power on the server now. And you can immediately see everything happening as you would say in front of the server, but remotely. So this so-called IRMC is a useful tool which is available on all SAP HANA servers. In some cases, you need to buy additional license to get a video redirection. So we can now see the boot screen of the Fujitsu server, and we will need to boot from CD. By the way, the CD is also not really inside. You can, with the server view, mount any ISO image as a CD. That's a pretty good tool. And this is a RX 254 2540. And before booting, we of course need to check the rate, yeah? So let's wait a bit for the boot screen. This is so-called web BIOS or rate setup coming. So we will need to wait for the keyboard command. So here it is, Control R. And we are in the RAID configuration utility. And you can see that already this virtual drive is pre-configured as it should be with 53 gig virtual drive 0 and the rest here. However, I want to show you the whole scenario from scratch. So what I will do is I will clear the configuration and start from scratch. And I will do so by following the tutorial. So I jump to the correct page in the meanwhile. So for the 25040, as you can see in the top of this document, we need to press Ctrl R, what we did, and then you must delete what we also did, clear config. So now we are at step 4, and we need to press F2 again to create a new virtual disk. So we press F2 again here on the upper node, Parade EP400i, and say create virtual drive. Okay, let's have a look. And we need to select the RAID level and press enter and select RAID 5. So RAID 5. Next one, mark each disk as part of the RAID 5 array by selecting the disk and pressing space. Repeat the action for all disks, okay. Oops, I will now mark them all. Now all disks from 0 to 7 are marked. Select size 53 gigabytes, okay. 53 GB. That doesn't work. 53. Okay, that worked. Select OK to confirm. Let me see. Select OK to confirm the initialization. So we have now virtual drive created, ID 0. Select this group select this group 0 and press F2 again. So drive group 0 selected and F2. Let me check. Select add new volume disk. So it's very well documented every step here. And then the remaining disk size is displayed. Do not change the value. Select OK. OK. I need to press the tab key to jump always between these buttons. Select OK to confirm. The RAID configuration is now finished. Press escape to exit the configuration utility and then reboot the machine. Alright, so I will just press escape key and say OK. I need to now restart the computer. Press the Control Alt Delete key. OK. Alright, so now we need to wait again until the BIOS is done and we can boot from the disk, from the SUSE Linux 12 SP3 disk. So with the F12 key we could change the boot order on this server and select the Fujitsu virtual CD-ROM. In my case I need to select this one. This is the one this JViewer is using. In your case, if you have a physical DVD inside the Blu-ray or DVD drive of the server, you need to select the drive of the computer. I will now use the virtual CD-ROM, and this will now start the installation or the boot menu of the SUSE 12 SP3 DVD. And I will choose the installation option. Alright, so the SUSE DVD installation wizard is now started. So the following recommendation: please never change the language of SUSE, but you can of course change the keyboard layout. For me, I have a German keyboard. However, there's a reason behind changing the language of the operating system can affect installation issues with SAP Business One components. We had this in the past, as sometimes some system variables are also translated differently with a different language. So please keep the language in English, but change the keyboard layout. And then we will agree to the license terms, and I will click on Next. The network configuration should be done accordingly. I will do this quickly and will fast forward for you. Okay, so now the network configuration is done. Okay, so in this step, SUSE asks you to register it. So what we can do is we can register it now via the standard process, via email and registration code, or if there's a local server, or you can skip. So I will register it now via email address and continue. So we can say in this case yes, and update also to the latest repositories. Later in this guide I will mention 2 repositories which will be added. We can either do this now during the installation or later, and I will prefer to do it later. So let's skip this step here and say next. So we will do a default installation and go with next. So this is not something where you need to take action, because the suggested partitioning is taking the second virtual disk, the bigger one, and we want Linux to be on the virtual disk 0, on the smaller one. And we will create a partition setup, and we will now choose the first virtual drive, the 53 gigabytes, for the installation, and not the bigger one. Check, use the entire hard disk, and say next. So now this information has changed here according to the first virtual drive, and we can say next to proceed. Here we can choose a region, or should choose the correct region. And here you have the opportunity to create a local user, and of course it's easy to use with the root user, but it also can harm the Linux system easily. So I recommend you to always create an additional user and never log in directly with the root user. So therefore we will create a second user, admin, and we use the same password also for the root user. Okay, so we can continue with the installation now. So the system is now rebooting. Okay, so the installation is done, and we can log in the first time using the self-defined user admin login. Alright, so this is the GNOME desktop of SUSE Linux 12. And yeah, we can now either continue using this server view JViewer tool, or we can enable a remote desktop connection to it using the VNC protocol or others. So that's what I would prefer. So I would start the application Yast. You can find it under System Tools and then Yast. We need to type in now the root password. And from here, if we go down a bit, we can see here the remote administration VNC. So we will allow remote administration. With SUSE 12 there's also the session management available. About the firewall, there's either an option to open a port in the firewall, which is, I think, a good way to proceed here. However, I will disable the firewall in the next step, because if you need a firewall, you should install or activate it after the installation is finished of Business One. So we continue here, install everything what is needed. And with the advice, you should log out and log in again. So we can easily do so here in Linux. Let me close these settings, and then we can also here log out. Alright, so I logged in again, and as a next step, I will disable the firewall for the installation. And I will disable it and stop it. Okay, and before we go now with the external remote connection, I just found it in Google that you need to do an additional modification, which happens only sometimes, but in this time it's necessary. So we will switch here to the computer directory easily. Okay. Going to the folder etc, then GDM, and in this folder I will need to edit a file called custom configuration, and we just need to add a line here which is enable equal true, and then we will save this document again. Just close and save. So I have not the right permission. This is always the trick when you are not working as a root user, but it is possible to also do this as a root user. I just need to close without saving. There are different ways to do so. I think the easiest way for me would be to go to applications, and then go to the utilities, and start the terminal, and then I will go here to the path etc GDM, and then I will use the super user command, do as a super user, sudo, and then edit the file custom configuration. So we need a password from the root user I will provide, and then I can easily write here enable equals true. Okay. And I need also to restart the service. So Okay, so let's try now to connect with VNC. Yes, and this looks now perfect, so I will now use this for the further presentation. So I will leave it for a moment, go to the presentation. Okay, so step 1 is done. Step 2 is also done. Step 3 is done, so we installed SUSE Linux on the first virtual drive. So next part is to configure the HANA mount as well as maybe file share, firewall. So Samba service enables you to share files between Windows and Linux. We will need to do that, and also disable or configure the firewall. We disabled it, and then also configure the HANA mounts. So let's start with the HANA mounts. So we will start Yast, and we will now go to the partitioner on the right, and we'll create some partitions. And while this is loading, let me quickly go back to the slide. And to see how to do the right partitioning, we will go to the next slide actually. And there are two options. You can create either logical volumes or partitions, and I will show you the process of doing it with logical volumes. And you need to specify 4 mount points, as you can see in the lower right corner. And we should start with HANA, so the HANA folder, and then we have HANA shared. It should be 1 times the memory, data 3 times the memory, and the log subfolder 1 times the memory. And the user SAP folder should be at least 50 gig. So first of all, we need of course to know how much memory we have. There are different ways to find this out. I believe the easiest way is to go to with a system monitor. Let me see that one. Under resources, we can see that we have around 504 gigabytes of memory, and is a technical number, and the real amount of memory is 512. Okay, so based on the memory, which is 512 gigabytes, we will now create the different logical volumes. Therefore, we go to volume management. So I will add a volume group called VG, and I will add all of the hard disk of the second virtual disk to this volume group, and then I will add some logical volumes to this group, and I will call them similar to the folder structure. So let's have a quick look in the PowerPoint. So we need HANA share for 1 times memory, HANA log 1 times memory, HANA data 3 times memory, user SAP bigger than 50 gig, or at least 50 gigabytes. So start with HANA share, then log, and then data. Okay, so first one is HANA shared. I will use the underscore here, and I will use the amount of memory, which is 512 gigabyte. And this will be used as all the other stuff as well for data. And I will use mount /HANA/shared. and I will click finish. Okay, next one will be HANA_log. Will be also 1 times memory, so 512 gigabytes, and next. Okay, and I will also add mount HANA and then log. And then another one, of course, for HANA data, HANA data, and this one will be 3 times, so it will be 1500. You can do the 36 gigabytes and say next. /HANA/data. Okay. Now add another logical volume, user SAP, and this will become the maximum size, the rest of this hard disk. And here I would choose a different file system than XFS, choose ext4. Okay, and then let's just finish this up. So we have now HANA data, log, shared, user SAP. We can also have a quick look in the PowerPoint again. So we have the data, we have the shared and the log inside HANA, and the user SAP. Okay. So then I will say next and finish. So now all the logical volumes are created. This is quite fast. Okay, so in the next step we will now download Business One and HANA packages. So we will go to the Firefox browser. It's in the internet section. And I will go to the launchpad.support.sap.com/$software center. And I will go to download the installation package of Business One. Business One version for SAP HANA 9.3, and I will start with the HANA platform. So I will need to download 122.16, and these are 2 files, 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. So we'll first start with the 1 of 2 download. And I will save the file. Okay, and also the next one. And I will continue and go 1 step back here. Go to the installation. And we'll download the patch 4 package, which is existing in the 3. It's a download of 3 parts. So Okay, now we need to wait for all the downloads to finish. Okay, so the download is finished, and we need to find out where actually the download is located. So it's in the downloads folder, and the first thing we will do is we will cut these files out from here, and we will go to a different directory now outside this folder. We just need to find the proper location. So we will go to our user mount /SAP, and in here we will create a new folder. And we have not the rights to do so, so we will actually go in terminal and we will use the command sudo to make a directory called, for example, software. Need to type the root password. And what we can then also do is that we can allow for everyone to read and write in this software folder. This is just a workaround for us to operate in this folder. So I will just paste the files in here. So we have two parts actually, and there are two ways we can start, always using the command sudo, or we can just type su and then a dash. This will ask us one more time to enter the credentials, and now if we type in who am I, we can see that we are now the root user. So being the root user or the system administrator now, we can do any command without running the sudo. So we are going now to the directory user SAP software. With the command L we list the files, so we can see now we have two sets of files here ending with 4 or 0. So we will start with the HANA part, which is the first two files. So we will create a new folder. I will call it just HDB for HANA database, and in this folder HDB we can then type in the command unrar, X for extract, and then again the full path. So, and then we will use the 5152, and we will start with the 1.exe. So you can see it's extract now. It takes a few minutes to extract the HANA database. Okay. So all files are extracted in the HDB subfolder. What we will do, we will create another folder called B1H, for example. It's 93 patch level 04. And in this folder, we will do pretty much the same. We will unrar the parameter X for extract again, and go to our software folder, and in here we will use the other files. Okay, so this is now doing an extraction of the Business One patch 4 installation package. This will quite take some time, so I will fast forward for you. Okay, so the files are now extracted. So we have all files of SUSE and all files of HANA and all files of Business One extracted to different subfolders. Before now starting the installation of HANA, we can clean up a little bit these files here, so I won't need them again. So let's continue with the installation of SAP HANA. So we need to do this to go to the HTTP folder, and in here there is a subfolder with the number and then data units, and in here there are 4 folders with the different SAP HANA components: AFL, database, client, and studio. So of course we can go to all of these folders and extract the files in here, but this would not allow us later to install all files directly. So a best practice actually is to move all the archives into this data units folder. So with the move command we can easily move files, so I recommend you to move then everything. With the tab key you can complete the folder names, and we will then move all the SAR files, the SAP archive files, to the current folder. So now we have already the AFL archive in this folder. Then I will move from the HANA client folder the 64-bit SAR file to the current folder. So now we have these 2 here, and then I will also move the SAP HANA database installation, the SAR file, to the current folder. So now we have these 3 green files here. The rest we don't need, so I don't want to install the Studio in Linux, just in Windows. But we will keep the installation files for later usage. So to unarchive or extract the SAR files, we need another file from Mozilla browser. So in the software download center we will search for SAP car, and we will download the latest version 7.2.1, and we will choose the Linux 64-bit version exactly and save it. Okay, so we can open up a new terminal window, and if you do cd and then the tilde command, you come to your home directory. In here in the downloads there's the SAP car file, and I can recommend you to move this SAP car file to user bin, then just name it SAP car. And I need to do this also as a administrator, because now I can just type SAP car wherever I am. So let me then give the correct authorizations for this file, so we can do the command chmod and then do a 754 to user bin and then SAP car. So now I should be able to execute it, yes. So let's now extract the AFL package. Minus XVF is the parameter for SAP car to extract. So we have now a folder called sap_hana_AFL. We will do the same, and if you press the up arrow key we can easily go to the history of commands. So I will now press a C for client, extracting the SAP HANA client 64-bit, and also the last one, the database. And for the database actually we also, which is called extracted server, the SAR file, we we need an additional parameter, manifest signature.smf. We need also a signature file for installing HANA later. We will generate it by using this minus manifest parameter. Okay, so you can see the last file extracted was this signature SMF file. So if we see now with the list command, we can see now that we have now these 3 folders extracted as well as the signature file. We can also clean up a little and remove, for example, the SAR files. So now let's go to the SAP HANA _HANA database folder, and in here we can see the file hdblcm. We can run it easily with the command /hdblcm, and we can see that other HANA components are detected as well. Besides the HANA database, there's also the AFL and the database client detected. So we will continue by pressing 1. Now we will press 2. We want to install all components, including AFL and client. And now in the brackets, these are the default values. We can acknowledge them or agree on them with pressing enter. I will use now HDB, which is more or less the generic SAP naming for HANA databases. Standard instance number 00, single container. Here, of course, you need to choose production. If it's a production system, I will leave custom. Password, of course, you need to define passwords. There are no brackets, no default passwords. Okay, and now you need to define a system password, and also I would recommend you to turn on this option that it automatically will start after the reboot. So we can confirm this and now wait for the installation. And please also ensure, this can also be done while the installation has also already been started, that in the YAST, we will go there quickly, that in the hosts file, you can find it under network host names, that there is always an entry with the real IP address against the host name. This is mandatory, otherwise HANA will fail to install. Okay, so let's wait for the setup to finish. Alright, so the installation of the SAP HANA database is finished now. There are different ways to check this also, so we can type in the top command, for example, and you should see the HDB index server in the topper list. So you can see HDB index is running. There are also other ways, other options to check it. For example, using the HDB admin user, there are commands like HDB info, which will show you also the processes running, and there are also other options. So HANA is running, and we can have a quick look at the PowerPoint. So as the next step, we should install now Business One version for SAP HANA, and therefore we should always verify the libraries and update them wherever necessary. Especially as of 9.3, 2 more repositories are required, the legacy module and the web and scripting module. So I will show you how to add these. So let's add the missing libraries. Just is still open. We go to the software category and then to software repositories, and we will then add some additional repository, and we will use extension and modules from registration server and say next. So we will select the legacy module as well as the last one, the web and scripting module. So both should be checked, legacy module and web and scripting module, and then we say next. Okay, we agree. And for the web and scripting module we need to agree as well. Okay, and finally we click on accept. And we will click on continue. So some dependencies solved and finish. Okay. So now we have the additional software repositories, and we can now go to the software management. And now search for the missing libraries. We can also check for example, the admin guide for this. I linked it in the presentation above the excerpt. You can see here a link to the admin guide. It's in Partner Edge. You can download. And in the prerequisites, page 21, you can see in the last section third-party libraries, and there's a link to the appendix 1 where you can find all these libraries, and we can test them now all through. A few of them are not installed on this machine, that's I know for sure, and a few of them may are installed. We can check them one by one, and to fast forward I will just show an example. For example, NFS kernel server. This one is installed, and could have also opened the admin guide in Linux, would be maybe easier. One which is only necessary for SUSE 12, for example. So there is this Python PI crypto and PI OpenSSL. So let's try these ones. So Python PY crypto. So this one is missing. Then also the OpenSSL. So OpenL. This one is installed. And I think there's also a compat libg crypt part dash libg crypt. Yeah, and here you can see it's also not installed, so we'll need to install that one. And another one which is missing, I think, in the default image is RPM build. Yes. So let's install these three. Okay. And before we now can start actually with the installation of Business One, we need to also go to the next step. So we downloaded already the files, and now when it comes to installing, we installed the HANA server together with client and AFL. But step 4 we have not yet done step 4, activating the script server. And also in Windows we have not installed the client and the studio. So we need to now get SAP HANA Studio as well as the HANA client and so on copied in Windows. There are tools which make it very easy for you, so like WinSCP can recommend you to get this one. There are also others like FileZilla and other tools which allow a SSH file transfer to Windows. Let me see, is it already downloading? Yeah, I think so. Okay. So in WinSCP we can then log in. I would recommend you to use the root user directly here. And we can go to the user SAP and then software folder, and now copy the HANA client Windows files, maybe to ctemp. Okay. And I will also share HANA Studio 64-bit. That's all we need. And we also need the SAP car for Windows. So we will go to the Launchpad again. And we will search for SAP car. And it's 21 version. And we will change now here from Linux to Windows 64. Download that file. Okay, we have SAP car. Right. So we can put this next to our files, ctemp, delete all the other files here. Okay, so all files are now in the temp folder. So what we will need to do is we will need to go to the command prompt and go to the folder temp. And then run the subcar tool -xvf, and then, for example, the studio is IMC studio. Okay. We will do the same with the 32-bit client in the nt_i386 directory. So we will need to use the subcar tool from here, -xvf, and then Okay. Fine. And we need to do the same in the x64. Okay, so now everything is extract. So we can then now continue to install. We will start with the client, 32-bit. And say next. Install. And we will do the same with the 64-bit client. And also with HANA Studio. And wait for the installation to finish. Okay, so SAP HANA Studio has been installed as well. So we can now see here in the SAP HANA programs folder SAP HANA Studio. So we will not provide a master password now. We will open the administration console, right click this white space, add system, then we enter the hostname or IP address. Log in with the system credentials. And there we are. If we double click the HDB system node, we can see also that all services are started. And if we right click here this node and go to properties, we can then also see in the license tab that we only have a temporary license which is valid for 90 days. So we need later install also a valid HANA key. Here's the hardware key code. But now we want to go to the configuration here, configuration tab, and we will go to, we want to activate the script server which is hidden under the daemon ini, and then the script server. And under instances we will make a double mouse click and enter a value 1 to activate the HTTP script server. And yeah, in addition, this is something we will find in the admin guide. We need to create also a new user. And let's open the admin guide in here quickly. So we need to create a HANA database user using these 3 roles. So we right click user, new user, username, you can use something like B1 admin. And then we can add the roles. So let's have a quick look. We have public is always there, so we need content admin and AFPM creator. So content admin and AFPM creator, eraser, and execute. So I will get rid of this window for the moment. So we can now see these two are added. The public profile will be added later automatically. So let's continue. What else do we need? We need to set the AFL PM creator role as grantable. So here on the right. Then we go to the next tab, system privileges, and then we can see we need these. So create schema, user admin, role admin, and so on. So we'll try to add them, and we can also easily put this on the right side. And that on the left. Okay. So we need create schema, and this should be grantable. And we need also user admin. And the thing is, you can also type in just admin and then add all admins you need. So we need the log admin, we need the ini file admin, keeping the control key pressed, user admin, and role admin. And click OK. Now user, role, and admin need grantable rights. So role admin, user admin we have, and role admin. Okay, so we have create schema, user admin, role admin. Now we need catalog read. Also grantable. And we need import export, so just type in port, we'll find both. And now we have everything we need. And as last we need the SQL object privilege. So we go to object privilege and we search for system schema, it's at the bottom. And also for sysrepo. This is now the first entry. And we can now see that create any and select needs to be for system selected. So create any and I think select. And for the sysrepo we need select, execute, and delete all grantable. And it's the other way around actually. So system needs create any and select. And sysrepo needs select, execute, and delete. And we need to put this all on grantable, as described in here. Okay, so with this we can just click here on this arrow icon and say deploy. And the user B1 admin is created. So finally, we can then go to Linux and we now open up the terminal. So we now go to the download folder and we will change the read access and write access to everyone. These are just the setup files. So. And don't forget we will need to do this as admin, so use the sudo command. So let's go into the packages.linux folder, and we will run the inside the server components folder, we will run the install file again as sudo. And we can see that one library is still missing, libopenssl. So we can either do it via yast, or we can run some other commands like zipper install libopenssl. And don't forget, do this as a sudo. It must be also the version 098. Yes. So I will run the installation now. So I will switch to root. And we will now continue installing business one in the default directory, and we will install everything, also a demo database of United States, analytics and service layer. So now this is always a big question, IP address or hostname. So both is working. Hostname has one benefit: if you are moving the server from your partner office to the customer, so then the IP will definitely change, and the hostname will not change. So hostname is in this case safer. However, using a hostname always has also some cons. It needs or requires a DNS server or some name resolution, so that the hostname gets translated into an IP address wherever you are in the network. So both sides have their pros and cons. So I will go with the IP address this time and continue. Default port, it's a new landscape. I will define a password now for the B1 site user using a self-signed certificate, and I will also set the default CD repository and log directory. The CD repository is needed later for the centralized deployment, which is new since patch 3. It's a standalone setup, no high availability, and HANA server credentials. The port is of a 00 instance, always 315. Here our new created user, B1 admin, and the password. Okay, so let's have a quick look in HANA. So as you can see, we used the option to change the next logon. Under security, to go to the password policy and deactivate this option, that the user must change the password of the first logon, and I would also increase the number of failed logon attempts. You can also change the lifetime of the initial password. It's recommended to put it a bit higher. Otherwise, after a few days, if you don't change it and you don't think of changing it, and this option is deactivated, so yeah. Okay, so let's get started. Also the password lifetime, I would recommend you to put it up. So if we log on now as our new user, we need to still change it. Okay. Okay, and here you can also specify a maximum backup folder size. There's not enough space in here, so you can put the work folder to user SAP backup service. Okay, this is not needed as we have only one server, so automatic restart. Okay. I've also not user, we don't use domain. Okay, authentication service layer, we will use the default settings. And we can get started now with the installation. As you can see, the installation is now finished. At least we can see that the service layer is installed, and if we close that one, we can see also that the other parts, components are installed. And if we go along the list of installed components, we can see that everything is successful. Please note that in this next step, you can see some warnings further down, and these need to be fixed. So these are recommended changes. Please open up these notes. So, and as you can see here are all recommended settings for SAP HANA and how the solution, how you can solve those issues. So these are things you should really go through and read carefully. But for now we will stop with this, and we will continue here in this browser with the initialization of Business One Analytics. In the PowerPoint you can see what we have done. So we installed SUSE Linux, we installed HANA Server Client AFL, the script server, the Studio to install client, and then in Linux we installed the Business One components, and in Windows we will do this at last. We will install the Business One client and also start initialization of a company database and run some predictive analysis settings, and then we're done with the recording. Okay, let's switch to Windows first. So now here in Windows we will install the Business One client, and therefore we will go to the network share of the HANA server backslash hostname or IP address, and then go to the B1 share directory, and in there to the client x64, and then run the setup executable file as administrator. So we will just start the installation of the client. And say next. And while the client is installing, let's go to the Internet Explorer and open up here the control center, which is the hostname or the IP followed by the port 40,000/control center uppercase C both times. We will ignore this and go to the web page. And if we now click here on the DB instance, we can see also that there's one US demo database, And if we go to the Services tab, we can then see here the Analytics platform. And if we log in here again, so in here we click on Companies, and then we can see that the US demo database is, of course, US localization, so the language United States English should be fine. We click on Initialize. Okay, then here for the installation of the Business One client, the DI API installation needs also contact to the SLD. So we will give here the IP address as we used during the installation. So this is 10. Okay. So if we take a look at the browser again, you can see that the database is now initialized. So we're just waiting for the Business One client to finish. So the installation of the Business One client is finished, and we will have to restart the computer, which we will do. So in the meanwhile, while the server is restarting, so we have installed Business One 64-bit. The company database is a demo database, we have it already. The initialization has been started, so what we can do in the meanwhile, while Windows is restarting, we can go to this URL and also define a run circle for the predictive analysis. So therefore we will go to HANA server port 40,000/predictive analysis. We'll do this time in Linux. So actually we can use the local host here. Predictive analysis as we are in Linux. So, and then we will use manager and manager default for demo database. And then we can either choose churn or both, and recommendation settings. Both of these settings we can define a cycle. For the churn probability we need like 50 plus customers. At least, let me run once. I think we get an error. Yeah, 50 customers, at least more than 50 customers. So this is something I cannot do so quickly with my demo database, but in the recommendation settings we can run them once, and we can also there's now too little historical data. However, we can still define here a run cycle, so we can say like hourly and save this run cycle. So let's have a quick look at Windows again. So the first time we need to run Business One as administrator to be able to write the license file information. And then just log in using manager as password and user for the demo database. And let's have a look. So there is full-blown SAP Business One version for SAP HANA, including analytics like the enterprise search. Yes, and everything is working. So this is almost turnkey ready. There are just a few more things to mention. So back in the control center, there is one more thing I want to show you, which is also mandatory to configure to be turnkey ready, and this is in the services, the job service. So the job service is responsible for various tasks for Business One, including the live collaboration as well as the alerts and also other stuff like mailer and so on. So we will log in.
And we have two settings here, the mailer service, the mailer settings and the alert and scheduling settings. So you need to fill out both. And then we will save this. Okay. And below we need to specify the database server and select at least one database, save. And if both settings are made, then we can then also start the mailer. Okay, and the other part is the alert and scheduling settings. Here, similar thing, you need to select the database server, or it will, let's say, take it from the other setting as well. Start here, then save it. Note that all the companies you're using must contain a user called alert SVC. You can also change the name here. So that's it with the job service, which is one of the SLD components. And now one last thing I want to show you about the further Business One components, how to get them installed in Windows. Therefore we will switch back to Linux. So back in Yast we can then also share a network folder to Windows, which includes all the software packages of Business One. This is something we can also allow for further packages to be installed. Therefore we start the Samba server and we will add a new share calling software, a share /user/sap/software. We will uncheck this one, so we don't want the rights be inherited, so we will just allow guest access and OK. If we now access the share, we will see also software, and in here we have the full package of patch 4, and I can then go ahead and install further Business One components, for example the Excel report and interactive analysis add-in for Microsoft Excel. And with this I would like to thank you for watching this presentation, and bye bye.